All right. Well, hi, Trish.
Hi, Carol. How are you
It
doing?
looks, I'm well, thank you. This is so fun to be live again. I think way back to when we started, isn't this what we did? I mean, we were live
We
on
did.
Facebook, not via StreamYard, but only to Facebook. And then look at us, episode 72, and we're
Season
now a
season 2.
podcast.
Season 2.
So, for those that are watching or those that are listening to this podcast when it does release, we just want to welcome you to Connect, Inspire, Create. And we are hoping through our conversations and the guests that we have on our show that we will just cover a variety of topics. And those include healthy mindset habits, life skills, marketing resources, everything just to enjoy your life, establish your boundaries, and grow
Definitely.
your business. So you are joining myself, Carol, a goal accountability coach and marketing consultant, and Trish, a healthy lifestyle, nutritional, and healthy mindset coach.
Correct.
And
Good job.
enjoy listening to us. So I guess we have introduced ourselves. You can find me at carolclegg.com. How about yourself, Trish?
My website is healthylifemindset.com and Trish Kinney Coaching.
Wonderful. So, in this episode, we are going to take a slightly different approach because we've had many wonderful guests on our show, and I think
Mm.
that it's time to just give you a little peek behind the scenes.
Yes.
And Trish and I are going to kind of interview each other, which might be a little different.
I'm ready. Fire
but,
away.
but it's going to be fun. But Trish, I
Mhm.
thought before we got into our interview questions and trying to unpack what you and I do as
Mhm.
coaches, I was going to ask you, what are you reading at the moment?
I
I'm
live
missing book club, so I was just kind of thinking, what are you reading?
Me too, me too. And listeners and viewers, and my glasses are driving me insane today. Carol, I was telling Carol I have to buy the deglare. So bear with me, folks. I can't see. Carol, I am reading such a great book. It's a fun book. It's a historic book. It's not a self-help book. And it's called Girl from the Gulches. I live in Northwest Montana, as you know. And so this book is about Mary Ronan. And we have a lake, Mary Ronan. It's her memoirs coming across the
Mm.
Oregon Trail. Her father dug for gold. She moved into this area, and she and her husband, he was an Indian agent with the Native Americans. And her memoirs discuss her entire journey throughout her life. She passed away in the 1920s, but it's an incredible local history, which I love.
I just think that's fabulous because you're right there. So it's so applicable and that you can just dig into that. And yeah, we
Yep.
can't always be reading business books.
No, and amen. And we're going to get into coaching skills. And one of those is what can you do to just escape in a healthy
Absolutely.
way? And this is a healthy way for me to escape.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love
Mhm.
my audiobooks and I have
What are
just
you
started
reading?
this one, and it's The Story of You by Ian
Mm.
Morgan Cron, and it's the Enneagram journey to becoming your true self. And once again, I seem to discover, I know Trish, we mentioned earlier, you and I love learning, and I have
Absolutely.
to, I find all these resources and these tools from listening to other people's podcasts. So,
Yep.
somebody interviews somebody and they talk about their book, and then you go and you check it out, and it just, I decided,
The
oh, it's
cycle
time.
continues, doesn't it, of learning. Now tell listeners and viewers what, in a nutshell, what the Enneagram is, because I learned a little about it, but it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and apparently it's been, it goes way, way, way back. So
Mhm,
it's not
mhm,
something brand new that's just been invented. And your
mhm.
personality and your styles, he explained it as thinking about yourself as living in a house. There's nine of these enneagrams, nine numbers, but
Yep.
you tend to spend time in one room more than the other, and so that is your dominant enneagram. And so knowing how
Do you
to
know your number
communicate,
yet?
I do. I'm a number 7.
Me too.
Are you
No kidding.
really?
No kidding. I'm a number 7. Isn't that amazing?
That is so much fun. So I actually, when I was listening to the book, thought of my daughter because
That's
she's
so
gone
funny,
back to.
Carol. That
I
just
know.
figures. It figures.
Kirsten, our daughter's gone back to school to do her master's in clinical health.
Mhm.
What do you call it? Health counseling. He in his book he spoke about when you're becoming a counselor or a therapist, if he had only known about the Enneagram way back when he was doing his PhD, he said it would have solved so many problems in trying to learn to understand people. So I bought the
Wow.
book for my daughter, decided that I needed it too, especially as coaches, because I think, and
Yep.
we'll get to that, that helping, your communication style, who you're talking to, what they need, how they need you to support them. But I guess,
Absolutely. And would you remind me during our little session here today? It's so fun to be live. Would you remind me as we're talking about therapy and coaching? Because a very wise friend of mine, we had a conversation about that last night, and I want to share something interesting about that I found was interesting. But
well, go ahead. I'd love for you to
oh,
do that, because we've got coaching, and then we've got all these different words, and there is so much confusion over them. But there's absolutely a difference between a therapist, or working with a therapist, and coaching. So you go ahead and share with our audience.
well, let me start by saying I have a therapist who's a wonderful gal. I've worked with her not only with marriage counseling, but just with myself. And she recently became a life coach. So this to me is fascinating. And she said to me, I want to work with folks that want to get better, in addition to working with folks that don't even know they need to get better yet, or maybe that they want to get better. Who knows if they need to get better, but who want to grow. So she's
Right.
able to work. And one thing that my coach taught me, because I have my own life coach like you do, Carol, and she taught me that therapy, at least from her perspective, is looking to people's past and kind of resolving past issues. And this is a therapist talking. And then in her view, coaching, which she just became certified as a coach, is more looking at a person's future and their goals. So thinking about, which is why I love both. She's the best of both worlds for me, because I can go back and I can set goals, and she can encourage me as I move forward.
What a wonderful combination, because yes, I mean, that is what, to me, while you're studying and you do your degree and master's and PhD, is having those tools to address the past
and then the
that
ethics,
healing.
last but not least, Carol, then the ethics was the conversation I had with a friend last night. I'd never thought of it that way. And coaching, it's the yin and the yang. People are a little hesitant about coaches. How are they certified? How are they regulated? But that is where we're different. We're not a therapist. We are working with people and their goals. And so there is a fine line.
And then you can throw onto that platform or that debate consultant. And where does a consultant fit in? When you talk about, so to me, from a coaching aspect, is you're listening and you're guiding, but people are kind of sometimes finding their own path. Whereas in a consultancy basis, you're training and showing skills and helping somebody to implement certain very specific things. But let's talk about accountability coaching. I know that we are both focusing on that at the moment, perhaps from two different aspects or different audiences. So I'd love for you, Trish, to take the mic first as I interview you.
Okay.
Who are you working with at the moment, and what areas of accountability do you like to focus on with your clients?
Well, I'll give a shout out to the startup group I'm working with, upways.co. It's a brilliant concept of accountability coaching. Now, this particular model, accountability coaching, as what I understand, things trend so quickly. Let's all agree on that. They trend so quickly. So in general, it's simply holding us accountable, which is what a coach does on any level. They're saying, how are you doing? Where are the areas you want to improve? How can I help? That's it, in my opinion. That's my direction. So accountability coaching with this model, Carol, that I'm working with now at upways.co, 15-minute calls. It's a very different model. It's for very specific people who already have a lot of their life dialed in, but there's something very specific they want me to hold them accountable to. For one person, it's losing weight. For another person, it's composing songs. For a third, it's literally getting better sleep. Can you believe it? People are smart. When they see an area in their life that they struggle with, it's really opened my eyes. So it's a different group of people. Now, coaching, a friend of mine called it the 360 perspective. Coaching, you're stepping back, in my case, and spending a little more time, but not much, because we all know people don't have much time. So maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes to really break it down.
So I know that you are offering both sides. So you've got this startup
Mhm.
company that you're working
Mhm.
with this new concept, and then you've
Yep.
got your own coaching, which it's so interesting when we watch the seasons and we talk about the seasons. Trish and I have been on this podcast for almost 2 years, and we've
Yep.
moved through seasons together, with different
Absolutely.
focuses from, yours was anxiety right in the beginning, and then moving into healthy food and, now the accountability, but you still offer one-on-one coaching in your personal capacity
Yep.
with yourself. So that's
I
available
do, and
as
they're
well.
45-minute sessions 4 times a month, and, but again, they are very focused. So, it
Right.
doesn't surprise me that you and I come into that 7 because to your point, Carol and I, listeners and viewers, we're so grateful for you. Um, we have really been encouraging and supportive of one another, and that is something I value highly in Carol's personality type, is it is a, uh, divisive world right now, and it's really hard to stay positive. But I think you naturally fall into that, Carol, as being hopeful.
Thank
You're a
you.
hopeful,
That's yeah.
determined. That doesn't mean it's easy. You're determined.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
let's go to
had
you now. Let's talk about your accountability focus.
absolutely. So my focus is helping women business owners, and that I hear that all the time, the overwhelm. It's like, I can do this, I know how, but I'm overwhelmed and I don't know which direction, which one to pick up, which one to start with. So my focus is on women small business owners and just helping them get organized and pick out what's important.
That's
I
great.
have my new mid-year word, which is simplicity. And so I want to try and share that with others to encourage. And then, of course, looking at managing your time and then discerning between what are the high impact areas and what are the low priorities and delegation.
And
So
what does simplicity mean to you, if I could ask? What does that mean to
absolutely.
you?
So simplicity means that you are dividing up your day. And of course, we'll get to that in a little bit when we talk about time boxing and time
Yeah.
blocking, but dividing up your day so that it really works for you. And so I have a couple of things, and Trish, I know you like to do this as well, is really giving ourselves time when we start our day. So that
Yep.
means not
The
looking at my
morning ritual.
phone, morning time. I mean, this morning I was out with the hummingbirds, and they were just swarming me because I put out fresh sugar water for them, and I was
I
just
love
sitting
the
under the
hummingbird.
chair and just watching them. And I just thought how important this is. Just I had all sorts of ideas flipping around in my head, and it was like, take time, take time. So the other thing, and I'm looking at my whiteboard here to the side, is theming the days of my week. That helps me with the overwhelm and knowing that which day brings what. I've divided that up now into morning and afternoon categories. And of
Mhm,
course,
mhm.
leaving space in between. And then I talk about my CEO day being Friday. And I
Now
like
tell
to
me what
think,
that is again, because you devoted a bits and bytes to that, and I like the idea.
thank you. So it is just saying Friday, I'm not working. So I don't get into emails. I don't get into social media. If I want to, I can, but I really want it to be a free day so that I don't feel any pressure. And I
Mhm,
can pick and
mhm.
choose what I want to do. And so it really makes it feel like a long weekend for me because
So by CEO, you mean, you're in charge of that
I'm in
day?
charge of my
Okay,
day.
I like
And
that.
so things that come up, I look at them, I glance at them and go, that's going to wait until Monday because this is my day today. So just, giving myself a break. But I
Mhm,
know
mhm.
that, we talk about the loneliness of an entrepreneurial journey or even our
Yeah,
coaching journey. And our clients also can feel alone. And sometimes I think just need someone to talk to help
mhm.
keep them on track, to know that their ideas are not crazy, to encourage them. So I think that is the importance of having somebody to listen to you. And as you
Absolutely.
mentioned, having a therapist, having a coach. I'm currently in a free mastermind. There are just three of us, but we only meet once a month. But it's that accountability. We've got a Google
Yep.
Doc where we put down our goals for each week, just one, and hold each other accountable. So keeps coming back
Yes,
to the accountability side. So I'd love to ask you, Trish, do you have favorite tools that you like to use when you're working with your clients? I know Google Docs has come up a couple of times.
definitely. And if we're talking about, software tools, Docs is the most common that I use right now. It seems to be the most mainstream where people of all different knowledge levels and comfort levels online can access it easily. It's simple, to your point.
Right.
And we can share it. I love Google Docs. It operates with systems easily. I would say practical tools, my two tools that you and I discussed right before this call that seem to come up again and again. And I am open to the flow of clients' needs.
Yes.
And what my coach does for me is she's handing me different tools at all times when we meet. Like, what about this? What about that? So I kind of gather them all into the toolbox, literally.
Right.
And the two that I seem to use the most right now, where I get the aha moment from people like, wow, this works. Actually, there's three. The first is the life pie. I call it, well, it's the life wheel in coaching, but I call it the life pie. Another client calls it his 360 circle.
Okay.
I love that because it's the place you can start with a client to get a feel for what their values are and how they're doing with those values.
Right.
And then number two is the time blocking. And you're going to show us your time box, which is a form of that. But time blocking, and we discussed this again before the call today or the session, Carol, that we've had people tell, you have and I have had people go, ooh, time blocking. Why would I don't have any time to block. But no, it's the opposite. It's taking control of your time and blocking your bath, blocking your time with your family, blocking your meditation time. It's your values that go in there first.
Absolutely.
And then, it is. And then last but not least, another tool that's come up that a client suggested to me, and I love it, is verbally declaring with accountability. He said, I want to verbally declare what I'm going to do before we talk next. Wow. And at the end of our call, I say, okay, tell me what you're going to do. Now, it doesn't work for everyone, but he loves it and it works.
And that makes so much sense because I say that time and time again, when we say something, even our gratitude, when we talk our gratitude and say it out loud or go to somebody and say, I'm grateful for you because, so that, saying it out loud moves us a lot closer, I believe.
Now, what are your favorites? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm cutting you off.
Not at all. So I have Trello that I love to use for project management, and that can be used in so many different ways, holding you accountable, holding myself accountable, putting dates and times on it. And then I use a platform called Paperbell. And that
I have not heard of that.
A client management, really a fabulous platform for coaches because you can put all your coaching packages into Paperbell. Okay. You can do your free consult, so you don't need, if you were doing get to meet you phone calls, you can build all these packages in there, have the links, it sets up payment, but it also gives each client an individual login. And it sends all the emails. So the reminder before a phone call, you don't have to go in and type your reminder email and say, hey, we're meeting on Monday at 5:00. Do you remember? It automates and it does everything for you. So Paperbell, I love for coaching and client management. And then, as I mentioned, I am exploring something new. So I will hold this up. Not everybody will be able to see this, but this is the sheet.
Yeah, really close to the screen. Put it forward. There you go. Okay, perfect.
So this is a sheet called Time Boxing. And yes, it looks very similar to a calendar, but in researching, and I'm a newbie at this, you start off with a brain dump. And so there's a little section in the front where you just dump down everything you're thinking about, things that you have to do. There's also a nice big section at the back.
And not everybody has heard of a brain dump, and I love it. Dumping all your thoughts, random thoughts in one place.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Then you pick your top 3 priorities. But then when you move them into the time slots on the calendar, you are allocating ahead of time how much time you're going to spend. So in other words, if I said I am going to do my planning for the week of marketing, I am giving it 30 minutes. When 30 minutes is up, that's it. I need to let it go.
Love it.
And I need to move on. Now, I do love the time blocking. I love my Google Calendar for that, and I have color codes for different categories,
for day theming,
personal, etc. And then I also love to use the task on the side of the Google Calendar, and so that's why I'm not sure how time boxing is going to work for me, and if it's going to work for me, because I need to see if I can blend the time blocking and the time boxing.
And Carol, if I could pop in something that I want to share with listeners and viewers, I have to say viewers too. We're working all this out, people. So, is you just raised a good point. For those who haven't already figured it out, and this is my humble observation, Carol will be your go-to listen up, watch Carol when it comes to tech, software, apps. That is her playground, and she loves trying out new things. So really listen up when Carol suggests apps or tools. My wheelhouse, I would say, is, gosh, Carol, what is my wheelhouse? I guess it's that I try a lot of things and I offer a lot of things, but I am learning from Carol every day when it comes to the apps. So keep that in mind. She's your go-to for that.
Thank you, Trish. Yeah, nothing wrong with good paper. I have got lots of sticky notes, so writing things down is important as well. But I don't know if we have time. I had come across a little bit of research that I did on Gretchen Rubin had shared something about trying to work out, who our clients are and how they would like or how they would respond to accountability coaching. So I would just love to share. So she has a framework that she calls the 4 tendencies. And just reading that to you, she breaks them up into upholders that meet both inner and outer expectations, questioners, which question both inner and outer expectations, obligers, resist inner but meet outer expectations, and rebels that resist both inner and outer expectations. I think my husband would probably say. So these are personality types. They are. And she has a little quiz to try and find out, and I'll link that in the show notes. But she says once you have put yourself like the Enneagram and decided, what you're fitting into, she then explains how, if depending on the category that you fall into, how you would respond to accountability coaching. Because I guess not everybody wants an accountability coach.
Do you know what you are on this list?
I do not. So I'm going to have to do that. But she says obligers generally get the most out of accountability coaching as they thrive on outer expectations exclusively. And I guess if you just listen to the description words, upholders often take on too much, and they often found that an accountability coach can help them prioritize. Questioners
very good.
Can get a lot out of accountability coaching, but only if the coach's approach makes sense to them.
That might be me. I ask a lot of questions.
And then rebels don't care about any kind of accountability. So they generally respond best to soundboarding type of coaching. And so that's interesting. They just want you to listen to them.
And hence the term verbal processing. Coaches can provide that tool. My coach gives me the greatest gift of I'm able to verbal process. I need to really openly process things.
Yeah. No, I discovered that the other day. I said to somebody, don't listen to everything I say because the words just come out of my mouth. But I need to say them to actually find my way.
Exactly.
So exactly. But I'm like you.
I'm going to guess that I might be a questioner. Because I'm not a people pleaser like I used to be. I very much speak my truth, which I think happens as we get older and wiser. But in a divisive world, you and I just launched we repeated the previous podcast, which was to not react, but to respond in a way that might be, a little wiser. And in this divisive world, I think it's very timely to think before we speak. No kidding.
Right. So I know, Trish, here we are. We're coming up almost on the half hour. So I would love to just ask you, which is what we ask our guests as well, if you could leave our listeners with either a connection or creative tip or something that you have been inspired by recently.
I was recently, and of course, viewers, my mind isn't working this quickly. Carol and I went over this beforehand. But I am pretty quick, aren't I? But I did have a very positive moment just 2 days ago with a client, and it happened to be a gentleman. So I find it fascinating that I'm working with more men lately. It doesn't mean I don't work with women, but it never occurred to me. Guess what? Men are relying on coaches and accountability and enjoying it and finding value in it too. However, this gentleman, I shared the life pie concept. He literally was blown away by something I assumed was
Everybody knows. Yeah.
ordinary.
Yeah.
He is a very what in your real quickly here in your 4 categories, Carol, he was probably very, very up in the cerebral, very
Okay.
focused on technical things. So when I was able to force this person or invite this person to talk about their values, how are they doing with them, they realized, they said, this is a real aha moment for me, and I want to thank you. This is blowing my mind that I'm not giving the time I would like to
Your
these areas of
values.
my life. And I was so thrilled because, like you said earlier, you never know what might break through with someone.
Mm-hmm.
So having all those tools.
And that just makes me sort of think about something, Trish, and I don't know if you've encountered that. As a coach, one still resonates with working with certain people. And that is why there are so many coaches out there, and that, just you could work with somebody different. So when it says, the coach's approach needs to make sense to them, but thinking about how your personal values would tie in with a client's values, do you see a synergy there? Do
Yes,
you see that
absolutely.
has to
Absolutely.
be? I
Yep.
agree that, yeah.
Again, you can work with people as you're starting your business. For the listeners that are thinking about getting into coaching or thinking about starting your own business, as with any other business, you most likely want to make income, and you most likely want a good fit that will bring you joy. And at first, a few of those have to be compromised. You will, in my opinion, need to bring on a few clients where you don't really see eye to eye, and just practice those skills, just like if you took a job with a manager you weren't crazy about.
Right.
And then as you start to make income, as you start to become more fruitful, you can start to pick and choose. And eventually the dream for me and for Carol, I would assume, Carol, but I want to ask you, the dream is to work with people to do what you love,
Absolutely. And I've got a little quote here that I've got on my other screen that says, goals are your dreams and ambitions that stem from an idea.
I love it. I love it. So how about you? Tell me something that you're happy about, or as we wrap up that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So one of I think the importance of audio to allow people to get to know you in all these different spaces. So be that on a podcast. The other place that I spend, which I try to monitor my time, but is on Clubhouse. And I am
what are you finding the value of there?
Fascinated at the different women that I am meeting in different spaces, and just learning, coming back to learning. I just listened to a wonderful podcast this morning, a room that I was in early this morning, and she was just talking about discipline, and that yes, we can have goals, and yes, we can have motivation, but discipline comes into it. It can't, because motivation comes and goes, whether you be tired or you haven't eaten enough or you are stressed or anxious. And so bringing in discipline is, I kind of think of it, does that sandwich over motivation and goal setting? But there's
I think it's accountability and grace. Having that balance, which you are very good at, which is why you're a coach, and I think I am also skilled at, is the balance between grace and encouragement, but accountability, holding them accountable.
Right. Yeah. No, and I know you've spoken a lot about that boundary setting, which I guess comes into the discipline.
It does.
Because if we don't set boundaries, then everything's all over the place. And that includes our calendar, and that includes our values.
Practicing what we preach, which is hard.
Yeah, it is. Well, everybody, I wanted to say thank you for watching us. Thank you for listening. And if you have loved what you've listened to today, we'd love for you to share this episode out on your social media. Come and say hello to Trish. She hangs out on LinkedIn. So do I, and Instagram. And then we want to do a little shout out to ourselves that we want to celebrate. So our podcast, we just got an email this morning from Good Pods. And if you are looking at a fresh way to listen to your podcast, do check out Good Pods, because they have communities on there. They just have some great indie podcasters on all sorts of topics. But we made number 8 in the top 100 indie entrepreneurship chart. We made number 15 in the top 100 indie health and fitness chart. And we made top 21 in the indie business chart. So go and listen to Good Pods. Go and look for us, Connect, Inspire, Create on Good Pods, and see what else you might find there. So with that, we leave you with our 3 little words: connect, inspire, create. These 3 words many of us strive for in our personal and professional lives. So go on, go and connect with some good people, go and inspire others to live their better lives, and go and create relationships and opportunities that lift others up. So Trish, this was great. Thank
Carol,
you.
I love working with you, my friend. I love it. Bye-bye.
We'll be back. Bye-bye.
Be back.